Welcome back to Resoundingly Human, a podcast series that highlights the work of Inform's members who are transforming the world around us in ways both big and small. I'm your host, Ashley Kay, and today we have Koen Peters, Head of Optimization for the World Food Programme's Supply Chain Planning and Optimization branch. For the last decade, he's been leading initiatives in the area of optimization and analytics, including tools that are now used to inform the design of food baskets, sourcing strategies, and delivery networks. Before we start, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos. All right, let's jump in. I'm excited for the opportunity to chat with Koen, who was previously featured on the podcast highlighting the World Food Programme as an Edelman Award finalist. Koen and I will catch up on all that's happened with WFP in the years since, as well as explore his own professional journey and share an exciting sneak peek at what he'll be presenting at the upcoming meeting. So Koen, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
I like your enthusiasm. So my goodness, where do we begin? First of all, it's wonderful to speak with you again. I think I'd love to start things off by asking you to share some insight into the kind of services the World Food Programme provides.
The World Food Programme, I will call it WFP throughout the call because that's much easier for me. But it's the largest humanitarian agency worldwide, fighting hunger in some of the most crisis-affected areas. So really using food assistance to not just relieve hunger, but even to provide pathway to peace in some countries, to really encourage and improve stability, prosperity, and really provide a blanket of hope to people that are recovering from either conflict or disasters. It's a massive organization. I think at the moment we have a presence in around 120 countries. And last year we were able to reach around 150 million people with either food or cash assistance. So a very nice footprint and really grateful to be able to contribute to that mission. Of course, that requires the management of a super complex supply chain all the way from the planning and procurement, all of these food items, all the way to its final distribution to people in some of the most conflict-affected areas in the globe.
I'm curious to know, when did ORMS and analytics begin to be utilized to enhance the work that WFP is doing?
WFP and the humanitarian sector as a whole have always really valued data-driven decision-making, but for a very long time it was difficult to really get analytics up and running. As you can imagine, in the places that we serve, even something as normal as connectivity can be a huge challenge, right? So having access to information on the ground, getting that latest information flowing into your solutions is already a massive challenge. And as you can imagine, the situation on the ground is also constantly changing, right? We need to constantly plan and replan our operations. We get a steady trickling of conflicting information about the scale of the emergency, how many people are in need, where are they, can we still reach them, like are the roads still working, right? So we are operating under this extreme level of uncertainty. So that makes it really difficult to leverage some of the traditional OR techniques in this sector. Around a decade ago, we really started investing more heavily in optimization and more predictive analytics to really help us to master this complexity and really also understand what it would take for us to be able to apply some of those standard state-of-the-art solutions like we would be doing in the US or in the Netherlands where I'm from, right? Like the typical tools and techniques that you would use there. How do we need to change these so that they actually hold up when we try to use them in Chad or Ghana or somewhere in a conflict zone in Syria, for example, and really try to kind of modernize how some of these humanitarian operations are being run. And I'm happy to report that we managed to somehow crack a little bit of the code on that.
I'd love to have you share a recap about the project for which your team from WFP was awarded the Franz Edelman Award.
We signed up for the Franz Edelman Award basically during the peak of COVID, right? So we had basically been going through this kind of transformation journey in WFP of bringing more and more analytics into the way that we manage and design our operations, which was really brought to kind of an explosion during the COVID peak, because we had to go from an organization that was $8 to $9 billion per year to $13, $14 billion per year in terms of assistance, right? So everything was supercharged, the complexity skyrocketed. So yeah, we really required these analytics to help us really master this complexity. And for the Edelman competition, we kind of shared that journey that we went through over the years to go from very initial prototypes and explorations of how we could use optimization, how we could use control towers and dashboards and all these kind of analytic solutions, tailor them to a humanitarian operation, and then build slowly that credibility, build out the maturity of these solutions. That is not just something that we could do, but something that we do by default, right? To really help us to support these complex emergencies. And it's been fantastic to kind of see that journey over the last decade. We now have dozens of people with a background in operations research, dozens of data scientists running around the organization, turning our data into insights. So it's been a beautiful journey to witness and encourage.
What are some of the ways that ORMS and analytics are sort of continuing to enhance the World Food Program, WFP, or in the future? What direction is this taking you?
We've definitely been building on the momentum of the Edelman Award and this kind of standardization of a lot of these solutions into our business processes to really make it more and more normal to rely on advanced analytics to support that decision making, whether it's at very operational level or more strategic decision making. And we're seeing now more and more teams and divisions around the organization and even around the humanitarian sector as a whole building these cells of data analysts and data scientists that are really trying to add more fuel, right, to this transformation. Last year, the UN as a whole even published some of its ambitions for transforming the overall humanitarian sector as part of what they call UN 2.0. And data and analytics are one of the 5 pillars of that transformation. So we're seeing more and more recognition for the value that our data and that our analytics can bring to really support that decision making. So a lot of excitement, a lot of cool new projects cropping up all over the organization to really help us to make the right decisions, in particular because of the immense needs that we are still facing when it comes to food security.
All right, so now without giving too much away, could you give us a sneak peek at what you'll be presenting at this year's annual meeting?
Don't worry, I will leave some of the best tidbits for the actual presentation. As I mentioned, it's a really opportune moment, I would say, for the analytics community to engage with the humanitarian sector in the wake of COVID, and then had a slow recovery of economies from the pandemic, went straight into the Ukraine crisis and several other conflicts had erupted since then. So the actual humanitarian needs have been escalating rapidly over the last couple of years. Funding is going in the opposite direction. Right. So there's more and more pressure across the sector to do more with less. Now, this is, of course, exactly what analytics is about. Right. So there is this immense challenge for the humanitarian sector to address. We really need to rethink how we manage operations and really maximize our cost effectiveness. And at the same time, there's this increased recognition that our data and analytics are one of the key elements to make that happen. So what we need now is an army of smart data scientists and OR experts who will come and help us to sort this out. So during my presentation, I really want to shed some light on some of those challenges that the sector is currently facing, what has been working well in terms of actually getting this OR, getting these analytics up and running in this sector so that we can really start transforming these humanitarian operations, not just for WFP, but for social safety nets, public distribution systems, health supply chains, all of the different humanitarian and development activities that need this innovation, in particular during this critical period.
Ultimately, what do you hope is the biggest takeaway for attendees who come to your session? What do you hope they take away with them back to the work that they're doing?
I hope to really challenge a little bit the community of OR experts in the world to show not just how challenging the current humanitarian environment is, looking at climate change, increased conflicts, slow economic uptakes after the pandemic, but not just showing the challenge, but also how realistic it is to actually enter now with our expertise, with our analytics, and make a difference there, right? Sharing some of the impactful examples that we've seen firsthand at WFP, where we are able to use optimization models to figure out which food items to distribute in Yemen, or really showing concrete examples of how it can benefit, showing some of the big challenges that we are facing, and then sharing some of the inspirational examples that we are working on even this year to bring new innovations into the way that we, for example, optimize our logistics or figure out our tactical sourcing and delivery planning, just giving a lot of concrete examples of how this can be done and sharing some of those best practices so that others can also start replicating this for other UN agencies, local NGOs, government safety nets, all the people that really need this revolution.
Well, Koen, that sounds so exciting. Thank you for sharing that little sneak peek. And to our listeners, if you want to hear more, you'll just have to register for the conference. So Koen, to change gears a little, what's something unique about you that others might not know? Maybe a hobby or a fun fact?
Of course, for my work, I spend a lot of time with computers and behind desk to work on data and analytics. So for my free time, I try to go into the opposite direction. So I really enjoy also going on adventures holidays. For example, we just came back from Azores, which is a very nice Portuguese island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where we did a lot of dolphin and whale watching. So in the last weeks, I think I spent a few dozen hours on the ocean trying to spot very small tails and fins in the deep water and between the waves, trying to kind of complete my list of different dolphins to see. So that was a beautiful experience that I will definitely try to do again soon.
That sounds lovely. So again, to change gears, was there a moment in your career when you saw the impact of ORMS and analytics and thought, yes, this is the career path for me. This is where I'm going to make a difference?
Yeah. So for me, the moment that I decided to really get into the humanitarian sector was around 12 years ago. So I was attending a conference on some of the global challenges that we are facing, and there was a element within that conference on food security, right? So we had some people sharing the fact that there's enough food being produced already in the world to feed everyone. But at the same time, there's 700, 800 million people that still regularly go to bed hungry. Right. So to me, having been studying OR for the last couple of years at that time, that sounded like an allocation problem to me, right? Like the food is already somewhere, we just need to find like a smart way to get it to a different place, right? Where it's more needed. So that is when I decided that I would try to figure out how I could apply my expertise in operations research to this global food problem. 2 years later, I started my internship with the World Food Program, and I haven't left since. So there's clearly a lot to do, and it's been really exciting to see firsthand how we can actually apply OR to deal with this complex issue.
If you weren't working in the incredible field that you are, what would you be doing today, do you think? Basically, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I think I changed my mind around every Monday, but I always had an affinity for puzzles and games, even in primary school, secondary school. So I didn't know yet where I was going to be solving puzzles, but I always knew that I wanted to do this. And at some point, I got in touch with the field of algebra, which really felt like a nice mathematical puzzle to play around with. So that set me on the path to operations research, and it was all a very fast hurricane from there. It would still take me a couple of years to figure out where I would be making a profession out of this enjoyment of solving puzzles, but I found my feet for sure.
Absolutely. So the Informs tagline is smarter decisions for a better world. When you hear that, what does that mean to you in the work that you do?
That tagline couldn't describe my working day more accurately. It's really what we've been trying to encourage at the World Food Program for the last day. Every day, we are really bringing these data-driven insight to support complex operations. This year alone, we've worked with more than 20 of our most complex humanitarian emergencies to assist them with optimization models, with our tools, with dashboards, with control towers to really help them understand the data that they have and how that can then inform their decision making so that we are able to reach more people, that we make sure that they are left with more nutritious food baskets, that we invest more in local markets, and that we just reach as many people as possible with the resources that are made available to us. So it's been a blessing to work on that with the World Food Programme.
So finally, what, if you can pick one thing out of the incredibly rewarding work that you do, what's one thing that brings you the most joy out of what you're doing?
Besides seeing the direct impact that OR is bringing in this sector, one of the things that I get a lot of enjoyment of is also seeing the journey that our OR experts and our data scientists are making. When we are taught about operations research and about analytics, the focus is often on the models and the data and how you kind of get those, to work together to get some different types of outputs in a very efficient way. But it's not so much about what happens after you've run that model, right? So how do you now engage with the person who needs to do something with your outputs, right? How do you engage with the decision makers? How do you work with experts in the field to make sure that your inputs are correct, that your model is behaving the way that it should, and that what you are recommending ultimately can actually be implemented and adopted by these operations. So that it has a bit of a learning curve, and it's really wonderful to see also that kind of change in our data scientists, see them engaging more and more with our deep field humanitarians, see them mastering the language, seeing them understand how best to translate their expertise to the needs of a logistician or a program officer somewhere in the middle of nowhere that is just looking for some answers, but without much understanding, right, of what we need to do behind the scenes to get those answers to them. So it's really wonderful to see how they are actually engaging with the humanitarian community.
Koen, I want to thank you again so much for taking the time to chat with me. And I, for one, can't wait to see you in Seattle in, just a few weeks.
Time flies. I'm looking forward to it.
Everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's interview with Koen Peters and his upcoming plenary session at the 2024 Informs annual meeting in Seattle. All right, see you next time.